Hey everyone, hopefully you're having a good day. My name's Andy. My channel is Finding Value. Today we're going to do our daily technical analysis update of commodities. We'll take a look across the board at the dollar, 10-30-year yield, and work our way through precious metals and commodities. I'm going to give you my financial opinions here and go through all these different sectors and tell you what I think based off of the charts. So let's dive in here. We'll start with the dollar. The dollar is lower today, down 0.22%. Kind of a flattish day, I'll call it, but slightly lower. We've got the 10-year yield. The 10-year yield also slightly lower today. And then we've got the 30-year yield. That is a little bit more down today. So the curve, when you look at the curve, the 10-year is falling less than the 30-year, and we're still getting that kind of inverted curve. But the curve is falling to the downside. When looking at bonds or bond prices, yields go down, bond prices go up, and bond prices continue to go higher. We've broken this downtrend line here. This would have been a great entry point if you want to go long in bonds and ride it on higher. What this is telling us is that the markets think that, and even Powell kind of reaffirmed it, is that we could potentially have lower inflation, and that the market, Powell, the Federal Reserve, is going to lower interest rates or lower the rate hikes. So we are seeing some of this come off in terms of yields, go up in terms of bond prices for a potential relief rally here. And there's our relief rally coming off the bottom here. Very nice, strong rally. The best time to enter this would have been on the break of this downtrend line break. The TYX to TNX ratio, the 30-year versus the 10-year ratio, when we look at this, we are still very low in its area here. And that's generally a good time to go long in precious metals, is when this ratio is quite low. But we went lower today, which means that the curve is still inverted. And again, down in this area, in these areas down here, are good times to go long in precious metals. Up here, those are usually good times to go long in oil and energy. Now, it doesn't mean just because we are low that this can't go lower. We could very much go a lot lower. Now, people think, this is just, I think the majority of thought is people think that the oil price is going to go back down. I am not in that camp. I think that we have large structural issues with oil and commodities. And I think that the curve could invert again. Now, here's the most difficult thing to try to get right. The short term is the hardest thing to get right. Are we going to get a pullback in the short term where we see, we'll call it loosening of inflation in the short term, we get a pullback, like recession type move, and then the inflation comes? Or is the inflation coming immediately? The conditions are there for inflation to come immediately, but that doesn't mean that it will necessarily happen. The markets can price whatever in. So here's the CRB index. What I see here is, if you draw this basically curve here, we've broken this to the upside. And what's weird is the treasury markets, the 30 and 10-year, are falling, but we have a breakout to the upside for commodities. And I do think that yields are a little bit lagged of what commodities do. Commodities are the driver, the supply-demand imbalance, and the supply-demand balance of money in the system in relationship to goods and services. Those are the things that matter. But this is broken to the upside. I do think eventually it'll work its way higher for the CRB index. The CRB to S&P 500 ratio is right at support, and we'll see where this thing goes. And those were kind of just poorly drawn in support lines. Oops. Those were poorly drawn in support lines. Let me yank them out real quick and put some nice even ones in there. But that's kind of what I'm seeing here in the ratio here. And just because we break down below it does not mean that this bull market is necessarily over. What we could have is the S&P 500 take off and the CRB index take off together, but it pulls down a little bit before we head back higher. That very well could be a possibility, and I think that's probably a likelihood of occurring there. Gold heading a little bit lower. Again, we had a lower dollar, lower yields. That's generally a good thing for gold and silver. And today we put in the bloody nose, and it looks good for a continued move higher over time. And we could get another small down day or two. It doesn't have to be immediate, but we've cleared everything we've needed to clear in terms of resistance levels. And basically what I think is going to happen is we're going to get a nice big move like we did in 2018, 2019. The yield curve is positioned for that to happen, the TYX, TNX, and we're breaking to the upside of all these different resistance support levels. We're breaking above all of them. And we could see an all-time high and move to another entirely different level. Basically what this is doing or telling us is it's front-running the monetary policies. And banks know what those monetary policies are. They're probably going to stop raising rates at some point. They're going to loosen at some point, and this is pricing it all in. Silver rocketing higher today, looking quite good. Do we have a silver squeeze going on? Very well could. Platinum getting a little bit more selling pressure today. It does look like we could head back. We've got strong resistance all through this little area up here. Very strong resistance that we're hitting. And we can get a little bit of a pullback. If we do get a pullback, that's just a good time for me to accumulate a little bit more before this thing really heads higher. XAU to gold ratio. This is the gold and silver mining companies, still heading higher a little bit. I still think this looks good to go higher. But again, we have not broken the long-term resistance level. That's up here. We have a ways to go before we really start to break out. GDX, slightly lower today, but still looks really good. We hit our head on this resistance line that I drew in eons ago, and we are coming back up with momentum. So we gapped lower and then came back up. It was still a down day, but the momentum is heading higher. SILJ putting in the bullish engulfing. This looks good to go higher. I think they all look very good still. Crude oil, so switching gears to crude oil, a little bit of a down day today, down 1.33%. Like I thought, I think we're probably going to move sideways for a little bit before heading higher. Natural gas also heading lower, much larger natural gas down day today, down 7.4%. And it does look like we could head a little bit down lower here. That's a lot of momentum. Natural gas is very volatile, and you gotta strap in those big boy pants and ride this volatility if you want to be a part of this big game. XOP, slightly lower, not as much as crude oil and natural gas, but slightly lower for XOP. And we're still above that support line in the white line here. So we're coming back to support, and we'll see how that interacts with the support area. We had lots of selling pressure yesterday trading, but today we were basically flat. In OIH, the energy service companies, OIH is looking really good. We've got a bullish engulfing thrown in today, where it gapped lower, momentum's heading higher, engulfs the day before it. So that does look like it wants to go to the upside for energy services. Everything looks really good on the weekly candlestick. And on the monthly, you can see we got a little bloody nose, and that's usually a continuation pattern afterwards. And that monthly candlestick is still playing out because we just went into December. So I think we're going to head higher here. This looks fantastic on a lot of the energy service companies. I'm wondering if XOP will follow suit. Looking at the Sprott Physical Uranium Trust, we are down 0.46%. We're grinding sideways along that support level. So we're grinding along support there. URNM heading a little bit higher today. We're up 0.45%. We've been bouncing back and forth in this area, squeezing up, and hopefully at some point here we can break out of this thing, and I think it's going to break to the upside given where commodities are at. Now, it doesn't matter what I think. What matters is what the market thinks. And we have seen inflation, the yields drop. We've seen bond prices go up. And I think that the market thinks that the cycle is kind of in the middle of this cycle. And I want to see oil start to take off again. If oil takes off again, I think uranium's going to go up with it. And I think it's just going to be a little bit of time. We've got TAN, big bullish engulfing, looks really bullish here to go higher. But this still looks good to move on higher. And I think we're right at the last area before this thing breaks out for TAN. COPX, which is the copper ETF, copper looking still very strong. We had a nice big month last month. And then looking at the dailies, we're getting that nice big bullish engulfing today, where I do think it could go higher. It still looks really good. Lithium up 1.5%. Looking at that ETF, we're putting in a bullish engulfing. I think it looks good to go higher. Looks very good. We're doing a lot of bullish engulfings where the opening and closing price is engulfing the last trading day, which is yesterday. REMX putting in a bullish engulfing. That looks like it wants to go higher. Now we're getting confluence. We're getting a bunch of different sectors putting in these bullish engulfings across the board. We've got support levels below us. I think we are all going to go higher. Looks like the entire market's going to go higher. That's what it looks like to me. The S&P 500 putting in another bullish type candlestick here. And we're above that support. I think it looks like it wants to go higher. So I think we're going across the board. Everything looks pretty good at this time. It doesn't mean it can't change rapidly, but it looks good that this time to move higher. And this is the composite index here. And I'm looking at the candlesticks and how we're trading over time. EEM also looking good. We've got the nice big bullish piercing. That looks like it wants to go higher. Across the board, everything looks like it wants to move on up. XHB also looking all right. I don't see too many large candlesticks anywhere in this cluster here, showing us that the sellers really want to just sell it off. It looks pretty strong everywhere. MU also moving higher, bullish piercing. That's usually a reversal pattern to move higher based off the candlesticks. We've got a 1% up day in copper. And what's interesting here is copper's starting to take off to the upside. I think it's kind of pricing in the China reopening. And I know people said, it's still below the 250-day moving average. It's going to stick with me for a little while. We've broken the downtrend, guys. The 50-day, 200-day moving average doesn't matter to me. What I'm looking at is the buying and selling pressures and the patterns that are being formed, the breakouts, and now the move higher. And with copper moving higher, it makes me think that oil is going to move higher as well. Leading indicators. We break this guy at 394, we're going to be in a new uptrend. It's going to be soon. Looking at lumber. Lumber's still a little bit lower today, but is this kind of the end of trend type move? We'll find out. We'll see if this can start putting in a bottom here. Iron ore moving higher, 1.25%. It's basically scribing in this pattern in a descending wedge. That's what I see there. We've got aluminum heading higher, 0.48%. We've had a pretty good run here this past week. So that looks very strong for aluminum. We've got the Baltic Dry Index. That is scribing out its pattern in a falling wedge, which will eventually, I think, break to the upside. Make a lot of people happy that are in the Baltic Dry Index. Coal futures just basically going down a little bit, but on a weekly candlestick, still up on the week. And then we've got Ethereum up, which is looking not too bad here from a charting perspective, and same with Bitcoin, still looking good. I do think that those could potentially go higher in the short term. So that's what I've got for today, guys. That's what I'm seeing in the markets. And everything looks really good. Really good. I'm seeing a lot of bullish engulfings today. That usually means with a statistical probability that we are eventually going to go higher here in the short term. It may not mean the next day. We could put in a little down candlestick, which is considered to be a bloody nose. We could go down a couple of days and then rip it. but it does look good for a move higher. So that's what I'm seeing across the board. Again, we have a 5 p.m. Mountain Standard Time Platinum question and answer session on Sunday. So if you want to join the Platinum membership, go ahead and join. Get your questions written down and go ahead and ask them. We have a discount, quote, discount in the coupon code. Get a little bit of money off if you want to join as well. The yearly membership, you have a larger discount than the monthly membership. So that's what I've got for today. Everything, in my opinion, looks very good. Copper looks strong. Silver looks strong. Gold looks strong. I would say the two weakest that I see from a charting perspective in the short term would be platinum looks a little bit weak in the short term, and oil's looking a little bit weak in the short term, along with natural gas. But I do think they are all going to go higher with time, and those are only statistical probabilities. So even if we come back a little bit, I consider those to be buying opportunities. I think the markets are messed up. We have big, large supply-demand imbalances out in the future where these deficits will be seen by the majority of people, which means higher prices across the board. So that's what I've got. If you guys like the content, give me a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And we'll catch you next time. This is Finding Value.